I have a porn addiction to really break it. Just for the men who are out there, how long has that been? So 36, it's been about 14 years. The energy of that still comes up as my wife gave birth and is laying in our bed with our child. There were thoughts like those old patterns were like, oh, hey, I'm still here. And it's like, well, hi, I know you. I know what that means. I got to know what those leaks were. Those leaks, the reason why I had those leaks is because my inner feminine, my little child, my little boy needed love and attention. But what I did is I turned to porn, I turned to cannabis, I turned to sex for filling those holes up. And thankfully, I'm grateful for a mentor because when I was 20, he introduced me to Taoist sexual cultivation practices.
Welcome to the Well Worship Man podcast, where men come to build unshakable presence, become the rock in their relationships, and build a legacy that lasts beyond their years. Here, we explore the path to mature masculinity through humble power, daily devotion, and unwavering integrity.
Thanks, baby. Before we dive in today, make sure that you follow the show on whatever platform you're listening on and leave a review. It really helps this message reach more of the men and the humans that need to hear it. And today on the show, we have Devon Frederickson. Devon is a relationship and intimacy coach guiding men, women, and couples into deeper intimacy, aliveness, and love. With 13 plus years in men's work, trauma-informed somatic practice, and regenerative living, he bridges the wisdom of the body with the heart's longing for connection. As a husband, new father, forever student, and global retreat leader, Devon is devoted to celebrating this miracle of life and to live fully, love deeply, and lead boldly. Hey, Devon.
Aloha, guys.
Aloha. Great to see you, brother.
So grateful to be here.
Yeah, I know that you've been doing this work for a long, long time, but recently there's been a new addition to your perspective and how you view this path of mature masculinity, and that's been that you're a new father. So I'll just open it up and tell us what's really been alive or what's been shown to you in your development with the acquisition of that.
Wow, that started off with a home run banger question. Stepping into the realm of men's work was so much about how to be a man in the world, how to provide, how to ensure that I'm on my purpose, that I'm connected to Great Spirit, how to be in relationship. But there hasn't been as much of a focus on, okay, what happens when you become a father? And I really feel like I did like the intermediary work. I'm really grateful for so much foundational pieces of being able to be connected to and knowing how to navigate my nervous system. Not how to be regulated, but know how to be both regulated and dysregulated and stay grounded, be that rock that you talk about. I'm grateful for all of the work in regards to like embracing my sexual energy and showing up in those ways and how to direct it and guide that. But nothing really prepared me for long nights, for having a request after request after request. I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. And the teenager inside of me that's like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to, like, where's my freedom? Like, go do it yourself. Can't you do this? Can't you do that? And it's really been a beautiful journey to deep, more like really what I'm doing, I feel like, is I'm reparenting my own little boy. As I'm becoming a father, I'm now doing all of the things and giving all the things that my little boy didn't get. And all of those things now have a safe space because we're giving a safe space to our daughter. It's like, oh my God, all these parts that have either been like haven't had their thirst quenched, haven't had the love that they got, are just like, hey, I'm here. And I'm having to both be a father, be a husband, and father my own little boy at the same time. So it's been a beautiful growth edge. I've watched, like I said, the teenager, the little boy, I've watched these parts come up. And overall, how can I just let more love in? Because my heart has just been bursting. Yeah, every single day, just being in awe of the miracle. Like you talked about, like one of my slogans is live fully, love deeply, and lead boldly. Staying in that presence, staying in that energetic every day with my daughter, watching her, all of the new things that she's doing, her presence, her eye connection, her laughter, her movements, it just is drawing me more into presence and showing me places where I may have had priorities or distractions that I didn't even know were there. So I'll leave it with that for now.
Yeah, thank you. It's so beautiful, even in our intro call, to hear you talk about this transition into fatherhood. And, you know, what I'm hearing is that all of these parts of you are being activated and getting to be seen in new ways because of your role for your daughter. And I'm just thinking, before your daughter, you probably thought, oh, I care so well for my inner child. Like, I've already gone through all of this stuff, and we're hitting this new wave of men, and hopefully this podcast is going to initiate more of them, where a lot of men haven't had, like you're sharing, the parenting or the emotional support that they needed when they were younger. And so there are a lot of people that go into parenthood like completely unprepared, but then people who are doing this work have a little bit more of an idea of like the intentionality behind
Mhm.
parenting. And I can just hear some of this, like, yeah, like I'm ready to be a parent. Like, I've done so much work. I feel so connected to myself. And I imagine that's an experience that you had as well, having been in this work for so long, and then you're still having these parts come up. And so I'm curious, like, what's new about the work that you're doing in the reparenting process that is maybe different from, reparenting or inner child work that you were doing before?
Mhm. So much of it before I felt was coming back home to myself. So much of it was just creating a space and creating a relationship with my little boy. So much of it was, all right, cool. I need to establish trust with him. I need him to know that I'm the one leading now, that I'm the adult. He can lean on me. And I've really felt solid. And what it's bringing up now are just, I would say, deeper layers of what I've already gone through. And it's a reminder that that forever student is always there. That the level of master is not even something that we ever attain in this realm, because there's still something to learn. There's still an opportunity to meet a new scenario, because there's never the same thing ever again.
Mm.
Even though it's like the amount of retreats that I've helped lead or co-lead or been at, they're like, this configuration will never be the same, because where we are on earth, where we are in space, where like all of things, what other people are doing never is the same. And so I feel like I'm really touching on it. Yeah, I think the newest part honestly feels like teenager stuff, because a lot of my inner child work was around when my mom and my dad separated when I was 3, and the concept of abandonment and, oh my God, like, am I the reason why they separated? And like a lot of worth and a lot of just like root foundational stuff. And being a father, it's like, all right, cool. Yes, I'm important, but I'm not important at the same time.
Mhm.
Like, my daughter is fully reliant, not on me, but on my wife, and thus my wife is fully dependent on me, because she has to be there for our girl. And the way that we're choosing, some people may choose to parent differently, but the way we're choosing to parent, doing our best to help her to be secure in herself, to help her know that she's loved and that she's got like touch and co-sleeping and all these things, it's a lot on my wife. So for me, it's like, all right, maybe I'm up later because I'm doing more dishes. I'm making more food. I'm prepping stuff for the next day. I'm cleaning. And then I go to bed later because I want to do my meditation or breath work practices or whatever at the end of the day. And then I maybe want to sleep in, but it's like, okay, 5:30, 6 a.m., our girl is up and she is energized, and mama wants a little bit more sleep. So now I'm in this phase of just like, all right, I'm up. I don't question it now. Whereas in the beginning, my teenager was just like, can't I have my space?
Mm.
And I was like, oh, hey, dude, hey, like, come on, let's go for a walk. And I've been walking with him and talking to him and letting him know, like, you're still here. And this is just a certain time. This is a phase in our life where it will never be like this again. But
Mm.
I've got to be there for my wife and I've got to be there for my daughter. And so, yes, you may feel like we don't have that much time, but that'll change. And so a lot of it has to do with that.
Mm.
There was one day where so much came up for me. I went into the other room and I just cried and I cried and I cried. And it was just around like what it's like to tend to myself, what it's like to not have the level of presence that I had with my wife before, because we've had such an amazing 4 years before our girl was here. And our level of devotion to each other, our commitment to intimacy and connection, we've had such juiciness with ourselves. And now the little boy that didn't get that was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Like, am I not going to have my wife around, all this? And I just really had to be with him and remind him, like, no, she's still here. Like, I'm so grateful because we're still intimate with each other. We still create time and space for each other. And I just had to let him know, like, yo, dude, this isn't about us right now. This is about really, really showing up for someone else. And to me, that's like what I learned. That's what I heard so much about being a man is like, you really become a man when you take care of something else other than yourself. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I thought I was doing that. I was so convinced that I was devoted to my wife and doing all of these things and showing up in the best ways that I can. And there has never not been a sign that I wasn't doing that. It's just like, it's deeper now. It's like, okay, how do I show up for myself with less time? How do I
Mhm.
Mm.
show up with myself when I have way more priorities than, all right, cool, I'm going to go to the beach? And because part of me, like my perspective totally gets it. I'm like, even 4 months from now, a month from now, things will be so different. And our girl, she is so incredible. We call her the best case scenario baby because she's so calm, she's so chill, she's so expressive to us. So I also know that she'll let us know if things aren't working or whatever it may be. But I know that like this time is just so unique. And so much of it is just talking to the parts of myself that are like, well, oh my God, these things aren't here before, or you're not doing what you used to do for me, all the routines or all the self care stuff. And it's like, how do I still show up? How do I still tend to myself? How do I still give so I then can be there for my wife?
You touch on a few things that are really important to emphasize. One is this feeling of, I thought I was doing that, or I thought I was done, which I've experienced. It's like in fifth grade, I thought I was the man. When I was a senior in high school, I thought I was the man. And I'm like, oh, there is so much more. There's a next level, there's a deeper initiation. And when you feel that, for me at least, sometimes it's like, you feel a little bit of shame for the level that you were operating at that you used to feel really good about. You're like, oh no, I'm like a beginner again, a forever student. And that is the signal that we are entering into that next initiation or that
Hmm.
deeper level. Um, and parallel to that is, you talk about the inner child work. Previously, it was like stuff that you did around your parents' divorce. And, this inner child work isn't a project to complete. It's like you were an adolescent for many years, right? And so guys can be frustrated. Oh man, I thought I processed my parents' divorce. I thought I knew about my attachment and my abandonment wounds, but now this teenager part of me is coming up. It's like, no, it's really a lifelong process. Like learning how to care for yourself, like you said, learning how to speak to that part of you is something that we will always be doing.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's frustrating. Like, why can't I just be done? Why can't I just go to the beach? And I was listening to Audible this morning from John Maxwell, and he says, as we accept more responsibility, our options decrease. We have less options. I was talking to another friend. He said the path narrows. It feels like there's less and less options, and then we're on this like thin line, which can feel restrictive, but also that's dharma, destiny, whatever you want to call it.
That's being forged by the fire, right? You mentioned crisis. To me, that's what I feel like you're talking about is like when more responsibility comes, you have less options available. That is what, in a sense, the etymology of crisis means. Like before, all of these options were available. And now a crisis moment means you have like one or two options. You don't have as many options as you did before. And a lot of people take crisis as like, oh my God, it's an emergency. But now all of a sudden it's like, well, we got ourselves in this position because we didn't listen. We
Mm.
didn't pay attention to all of the signs that were talking to us that are saying, wow, you think you're in an emergency that has to do with nature and all that stuff, but like, did you pay attention to all of the things that you were doing, that we've been doing as a collective, that we found ourselves here? And so I think witnessing that part of myself know that I chose this path, that has helped me meet the parts that have come up. Because my wife and I, we consciously conceived, we very much wanted to do it. Whenever we were making love, we entered into this space saying, all right, we're like full prayer, ceremony, all of this stuff to like be as connected as we could and know that that's what we were wanting to do, that we were calling in and welcoming in whoever wanted to come through her and come through us. And there were times where I felt that I could feel the winnowing away and just the like narrowing of like, all right, wow. Where she's, even when she was initially pregnant, watching her and being wondering, did I make the right choice? She's going through all these hormones into her body and is not feeling good for her. And I'm watching her in distress and like experiencing so much. And I'm like, oh God, did we make the right choice? And I'm like, we chose this. So yes, like my choice now is to not wonder and ponder those things. My choice is to be here for her and to rub her back and to bring her water and to bring a wet rag and wipe her face if she needs some support. And yeah, it's really beautiful to, as consciously as we can with intention and mindfulness, bring that to our actions, bring that level of presence, bring that life force to what it is that we're creating, to how we're showing up and how we're living life. Because we don't have to. I've been an individual in those times in life where I didn't bring as much intention. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I've worked with a lot of men and women and couples where they are bringing that level of presence and devotion. And it's like, well, you want more responsibility or you want something in your life. Excellence requires a lot of presence and effort and investment. So if we want that, it's totally available to us. Because to me, responsibility and freedom are intricately connected. If I want more freedom, I have to embrace more responsibility. And if I embrace more responsibility, then it's like what you're talking about. The restrictions create freedom. Because it's like, all right, no, I'm going to say no to all of those things. And by saying yes to this, life meets me.
Yeah, we were at a workshop maybe like a month ago, and someone was just mentioning like what's the secret to a relationship that lasts. But as you're talking, I'm like, this applies to everything. And they were saying once you choose, stop choosing. Like
Yep.
once you've chosen, this is just be all into it. And with what you're sharing about just, how to have excellence, it's Isaac often shares like, life is very simple. Like basically be in alignment with spirit, and when you notice that you're not, come back. Like that's that's really like it. And then the feminine is like, doing all of these other things. It really is it really is like there's an equation, there's an order, there's a pattern, a sacred geometry of the universe, and if you want an outcome, you can have it. You just have to figure out the input, and to your point, like put in the amount of intention, the amount of time, the amount of presence to create that outcome. If you're not perfectly paying attention to like the cookies you're baking, they're not going to come out the way that you want them to. And that's just the way that the universe works. And so it's a really important teaching to hear and, take as much time as we want to accept it. But if we are really striving to be the human that we want and have the experiences that we want, that is the path.
My wife and I were walking in the forest the other day, and we do check-ins just about like our relationship and like, how are you in our union? How, like, what's going on for you? And what she shares with me a lot is she's just like, I'm in awe and also intimidated by your level of devotion and like how solid you are in this. Because in transparency, there was, when was it? I think it was around 3 and 4 weeks after our daughter was born. She started being the feminine, which is the way that I see it. She started having questions. She started like moving and feeling wobbly in herself and was like wondering like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what does this mean about our relationship? And there definitely didn't mean that I wasn't impacted. It didn't mean that it was like challenging to hear these things with her, but it's like, sweetheart, I'm right here. Like, it's okay that you're having these things. You're 3 weeks old. You think that you're X amount of years because you've been on the earth, but you're 3 weeks a new mother. You're fresh. You're coming into yourself. Like, it's okay that you're questioning. It's okay that you have these things. And I think both sides with my work with couples, like we get to embody that in both sides. Like we need the masculine and the feminine in us so we can bring that to our relationship. So that way, when there's times when the man may wobble and he has his own challenges, the woman doesn't try and save him. She doesn't freak out that he's wobbling, but it's just like, no, I know you got yourself, and vice versa. We get to do that for when our woman is wobbly and she's having a hard time, it's like, sweetheart, it's okay. Like, I got you. Like, whatever you need to go through, whatever's here. And to me, it all comes back to choice.
Mhm.
And you said that. And I so agree. We don't need to overcomplicate things, because I see so many people just come up here and overcomplicate when it's actually really simple. And I tell her that. I'm like, it's just a choice. It's every day. Like, I get up and my daily prayer in the morning and at the end of the day is choosing my wife again and giving thanks for that. And if it's challenging to go into that prayer, then I have to be with myself a little bit. So that way, when I go into the prayer, or part of my prayer is talking to spirit and being like, I'm having a hard time with this. And part of it is like, I walk myself in conversation with spirit back to my choice. We really faced that. We got married um, in April of this year. We were going to get married last year, but she ended up getting pregnant. We didn't know how long the process was going to be for her to get pregnant. And so we were like, she did not want to get married during the first trimester. She was like, I would way rather feel better. And our kumu, the individual who officiated our wedding, gave us a lot of practices and ritual in preparation, which was so beautiful. We had 8 weeks of stuff that was like we had to do 4 times a day, and it like changed throughout those 8 weeks, and was so powerful. It was so amazing and so beautiful. And it was just about like clearing out the insides and the fear that came up in that time of, wow, I'm making vows. And to me, vows are things that I don't break.
Mhm.
And so in offering these vows, in witnessing a culture where divorce rates are above 50%, and it just is this willy-nilly thing, I was like, that's not how it is for me. When I'm making this choice, I'm like, I'm either going to make this choice or I'm not. And I already knew, let's see. I met my wife. We met in June of 2021, and I remember the day, November 11th, 2021. I was doing a photo shoot, and the guy who was doing it, he was like, don't you think it would be good to have your girlfriend here? And I was like, absolutely. So we did some stuff with me, and then we brought her in at the end of the day. After we got done with the photo shoot, I had to go to the bathroom, and I was walking back. And as I was walking back, everything went blurry
Mhm.
except her. And I just was kind of being like, what's going on? I kept walking, kept approaching her. And as I was about probably like 20 feet, 30 feet away from her, it just landed in me. I want to marry this woman. I want to commit myself, like actually commit myself to this woman. And circling back to what you said, Isaac, earlier of like, oh, I've been doing the work, I'm done. I cried for 3 hours later that night because I realized what I had done in the past. I thought that I was committed and I thought that I was showing up in the past. But really, I knew the truth all along in all of those relationships.
Mhm.
And as that moment has progressed from then, I've watched this and I've been able to pick it out and see in couples that have worked with me or couples that are close to us. I'm like, they're not going to make it. I can feel and sense the foundation of them. Or I'm like looking at people and they're like having a hard time. I'm like, no, they're good. And because of that moment that I had where I was just like, I want to commit myself and offer myself and give myself to my wife, to meet that energy of like, wow, caused harm because I said that I was showing up in a certain way. I thought I was showing up in a certain way, but I didn't even know it until I had to like meet that and know it. So that was a riff there, but thanks for listening.
Yeah. That's a really important personal confrontation. When I say that, a confrontation with self that other men have shared with me, that I've gone through, of really getting honest once you can see,
Mm-hmm.
getting honest about the ways that we have used and abused the feminine.
Well,
There's the really there's a really gross, obvious levels of abuse, and then there is the using of the feminine to mask my own insecurities,
yep.
right? And so at some level, unfortunately, all men have used the feminine, and that realization is a cathartic process that I've felt too, of through my own inability to see myself, through my own unwillingness to look at my pre-existing anger or wounds, I
Mm-hmm.
have hurt this woman, right? And for me, it was I had to end an engagement that I got back myself into, you know? And, you know, as we're talking, I know that you have a really devoted and sacred relationship with nature and with the earth. And I think
Mm.
this is a good segue because Mother Earth is a feminine spirit of, you know, how does your relationship with nature coexist with your relationship with your daughter, with your wife, with other women in your life? How is that serving you?
I had a life-changing experience over 16 years ago that woke me up to the realization that, like I was talking about earlier, I was not living with intention. I had gotten away from my awareness of gratitude and embracing the miracle and the gift of every moment and every breath and every interaction. From that point forward, I was in school for engineering. I was sitting in front of computers all day. I was under LED or fluorescent light, and I wasn't happy. I was ready to drop out. I was so disgusted by what I was seeing, as my eyes started to open, what I was witnessing in politics, what I was witnessing in mainstream science, a lot of different things. Because I was deeply involved, I started to see these different studies and research experiments and just wondering what is actually going on. So instead of dropping out, I got a job that summer and I worked on the weekends. And during the week, I had off. And that whole summer, I was living in Northern California and I spent so much time with the trees, with the rivers, with the ocean. And one day I found myself at a like a sustainability fair. And I saw this book that caught my attention. And at that point I had kind of, because of my relationship with school, I was just so annoyed with reading books. I'd read books when I was younger, but after so many years of assigned reading and not reading things I wanted to read, I just was like, I'm done. I kind of stopped reading. But I picked up this book that I couldn't avoid, and it's called A Language Older Than Words.
Hmm.
And the reason where I'm going with all of this is what that book did is it brought me back to recognizing and acknowledging that the earth was here before us. And whether we have evolved on this earth or we came on alien ships and were brought here, like whatever anyone wants to believe, we're here. And what I started experiencing is I started to experience nature and the earth interact with me and engage with me more,
Mm.
which then opened my eyes even more. Then I decided to stay in school and instead of doing environmental engineering, I went into environmental science because I knew I still had such a deep connection with the earth and nature. I wanted to be involved with that somehow. Permaculture is what came across my path. And when I started learning about permaculture and regenerative agriculture, that to me felt like reciprocity. That felt like, okay, cool. The earth is number one. Our actions are to care for the earth because that's what the indigenous people, from all the indigenous individuals I was being around, they're like, we got to take care of the next 7 generations. That's taking care of the earth because that's what's going to be here for the next 7 generations. I just saw all this overlapping. And as I just continued to dive into that field, and similarly around that time, I got involved and I'm really grateful for different men who were mentors in my life. I just started doing a bunch of introspection. I was going to therapy, hanging out with these older men. And I realized, wow, okay, I'm of the earth, right? I'm a son of the earth. If I want a woman in my life, she's a daughter of the earth. She is one, the reflection of the feminine, and also a daughter of the feminine and of the earth. So I'm here to honor my love and my devotion to the earth by honoring my love and my devotion to the woman who I have in my life. So now that I have my wife, now that I have my daughter, every time every time I go out and I'm on the land and I'm taking care of plants that I've planted for my family, that I'm seeing trash and I'm picking up trash, I'm not angry because before I was angry. But now I'm like, I get to take this and I get to put it somewhere so that way we can, as a collective, figure out how to deal with it. So that way I start slowly but surely picking up trash. And I get to talk to the people. I get to have conversations with my dad and say, Dad, how can you allow all this trash to be on our family land? And I get to talk to other people and be like, we need to grow, like, let's be growing food. Like, let's not be a part of the multinational system that makes food cheaper than food that's grown around us. How can food that's grown around us be more expensive than food that's grown all around the world and being shipped and all these things? And so the more that I honor my relationship to the earth, I cannot avoid the choices that how that impacts my wife and my daughter. and the other children that we want to have. Not from a place of trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to be here perfect. I'm not trying to say, oh, everyone needs to stop driving combustion engines because we can't use gasoline and diesel. And I'm not saying everyone needs to drive electric vehicles, because what do we do with all of the precious earth minerals that are being extracted for electrical batteries? Like, we got to look at the whole picture and say, what are we doing as a whole? Why do we find ourselves here? What are we unknowingly agreeing to by saying, oh, people do that, which then through our own cognitive dissonance, we then say that we do the same thing. How do we not agree with everyone, and how are we be willing to disagree with people and say we can do better? I don't know what that is, but we can do better, instead of just like, oh, things are screwed up. Oh yeah, I know. Then we then internalize that, instead of saying, like, there's people who I've been talking to recently, and I may not say it out loud, but I'm just like, I don't agree with that. I either say it out loud or I say it internally, because if I don't want to have a long conversation with that individual, I at least walk away and I'm like, I don't agree with that. I don't subscribe to that reality. I may not know. So to close that loop up, tending to the earth is seeing the earth as our own body. And when I look at my wife and when I look at my daughter, how can I make choices that supports them? And how can I make choices that supports the earth? Because we're not separate. We're so intricately connected. There's so much beauty, and there's also so much challenge and not beauty. And to not get bogged down by that, but also to not then participate because we're doomed. So it's such a dance. To me, it's being fully human, being able to feel the devastation and the extraction and all of those things that are going on, and not taking that on personally, because I may not be the one to try and change it all, but how can I be an example and an embodiment of love to people who I interact with, to plants that I come into contact with, to animals? Like last night, there was a bee inside, and I just was talking to it. I'm just like, hey, let's get you out of the house. And most people would be like, why are you talking to the bee? But I, with my hand, after probably 2 minutes, I had to spend time with it, right? Like, I had to get present. I had to talk with the bee and be like, come on, let's get you out. But after 2 minutes, I got the bee out of the house. Some people would be like, oh, kill that bug. But it's just like, we're all here together. And I could talk about so many stories with animals that have like brought me to that realization of recognizing that they do listen. Their just level of communication is a language older than words, like that book talks about. And I'm gonna take a breath because I said a lot.
Yeah, thank you for going into that. I think that, something that really stands out when you're talking about this connection to the earth and the desire to care for her because of the impact that it has on your own body and everyone else's is, you know, this concept that it's not necessarily my fault, but it's my responsibility, which we talk about sometimes and is part of this work as you start doing it. Like, I didn't put that trash there, but I will pick it up so that this place is a better place than I found it. And I didn't implant these, beliefs in my dad's mind, but I can potentially change them. And even if it's not about changing them, just offer a seed so that he can work with it on his own in his own time. And that feels like a really important characteristic of people that are stepping into a higher form of masculinity, where it's just like, I am willing to take accountability or take responsibility for things that aren't necessarily mine, but because I'm in service to the things around me, to the world around me, to the feminine around me, and just letting that be part of life instead of, oh, I have to do this, or I'm upset that I'm doing this. But actually using that as motivation to show up as the men that they are desiring to be, and as part of that equation that we're talking about. You don't have to care for the world around you. You don't have to care for the feminine. You don't have to take responsibility. Oh, that's what I thought was happening. It'll probably just cut it out. But he might just start from where he ended, say something else. Welcome back. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick up from where you left off.
I caught most of what you said.
Okay, for the recording sake, I think it'll be easier to
It'll
cut.
tune in. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks. Okay.
The work that we do, part of this is like recognizing we don't have to, but we get to.
Yeah. When you are sharing about this connection with caring for Mother Earth as if it's caring for your own body and as an offering to your wife and your child and the world around us. There is this piece of taking responsibility for things that aren't necessarily yours.
Well,
Picking up trash that you didn't place, offering insight into people's perspectives that maybe, you don't have to put your energy into, but you can in order to spread this type of message of no, we get to care for these things. And when we were talking about the type of life that someone wants to live or the type of person they want to be, we were saying there are certain equations that create certain outcomes. And this, in the men that we've talked to and in the man that I've witnessed, Isaac B, seems to be part of that equation of showing up as, for lack of better words, the well-worshipped man and having the experience of being a man who gets to lead and who gets to receive respect and worship from their partner, because it's not that he is feeling victimized or overwhelmed by the work that he has to do, but is grateful for this responsibility that he gets to offer. And in that process, I'm curious if you've had, I don't know if that's something that has always been part of your makeup, or if you went through a little bit of a journey of feeling, do I always have to be the one? Is kind of the loop that runs through people's minds. Do I always have to be the one to whatever it is, create, repair, to pick up the piece of trash, to apologize first? And when and how that maybe shifted for you from do I have to oh, what a beautiful gift that I get to.
I think so much of that is reflected in my journey right now of, oh, I get to be a father. I chose this. Like, I get to be the one who shows up, and meeting the inner teenager who's like, do I have to be the one who goes to do that? So it's like very highlighted for me right now.
Mhm.
And yes, I went through that a lot in the past. I made a post about that today, specifically talking about the man who I was the one trying to be the man who had it all together and be the man who's going to help her heal all of her wounds when I needed to give her space. I was the man who didn't want the relationship to fail because I was afraid of what does that mean about me, and my parents and their relationship failed. So if I let it fail, am I just like them? When in
Mhm.
reality, if the writing's on the wall, it's like, bless you, thank you, this has been amazing. And like, let's both go on our ways. And yeah, I have definitely been that man where I'm annoyed because I have to be the one who goes and apologize, even though I know what happened, even though I know that like this or that happened. But then it comes back to, again, reciprocity. It comes back to equity. Did I do anything in that scenario? And if I feel solid that I didn't do anything, well, then how can I go back and how can I establish connection again? Instead of trying to come to her and be like, well, you need to apologize to me. What if I create a safe space for her to express what's going on? Because I know that her sharing her truth is hard because she was told that it was always too much. So I can still be the one who gets to lean in and say, okay, I choose my wife. I woke up today and I said a prayer and I choosing her. And we just had a challenging interaction. And so there definitely was an arc of, all right, well, I'm doing the work. And no, I'm good. Like, that was you. And then it was like, oh, well, okay. Like, I'm still in this. I'm not all clean and shiny. And it reminds me of the quote. I don't know where it comes from, but it says, and I just need to figure out where it comes from so I can give due respect. The person with the nicest garden has the dirtiest hands.
Hmm.
So we can apply that to a relationship, right? Like, if a man wants to be well worshipped, right? He also has to show up. We don't just get well worshipped because we're sitting back and like, all right, come on, polish my toes. Like, it's like, no, we show up as that embodiment of the king archetype, of the lover, the warrior, the magician, and all the other archetypes that are included, not just those four. Like, how do we show up in all of those realms? Because that's what will give the reciprocity. And on the other side, for a woman, like, a woman also gets to be well worshipped. And that's also because of what she does. And it's not even what we do, but to me, it comes back to the embodiment piece of like, how are we showing up? Because if I'm doing something, well, look, I'm doing all of this for you, but if I have resentment and anger on the inside, that's not going to be received, and vice versa on the woman's side. So much of it comes back to what you were talking about earlier, the alignment piece, the attunement. And a lot of people, I think, want the answers of what do I do? And the doing comes, going to another metaphor, another story. It reminds me of the Tao, the chop wood and carry water part. We chop wood and carry water until we realize why and how we chop wood and carry water. And then we continue to chop wood and carry water. Not because all of a sudden we've reached enlightenment, because that's what the student gets in that story, right? The student comes back to the master and the master tells him, like, all right, now what? Well, you go chop wood and carry water. And so to me, the whole point of doing the work is to be the work, is to let the work speak through our actions and how we're felt and how people perceive us. Because I genuinely believe this, that everyone is so sensitive and aware of energy, but most people just haven't been taught to listen to it or be tuned in enough to it. And there's so many people who may not be in the space of doing the work, and they talk about, oh my God, could you feel that person? And so everyone feels, we're all sensing. So that comes back to that alignment piece. And so I had to really get clear, which part of it comes from my relationship in the earth and how I show up to honor the earth. Part of it's my relationship with spirit and how I stay in that path, that I'm a child of God. I'm a child of spirit before my own purpose. Because I'm quoting a lot right now, the guy Russ, the rapper, he said, God fucked up all my plans until I realized that I would be fucked up if I like took my plans. I'm like paraphrasing him, but he says a quote like that of like, if I tried to do my plans, I might cause a lot more harm than like, I think I need to do this. But if I'm listening, life is saying, you need to go here or go there. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yes. I just went through this process yesterday. I started posting some prayers on my content, and I went through this process yesterday and ended up posting a prayer last night about freedom with a lot of the work that we're going into. You know, my teenager, my like wounded feminine that has been like heartbroken and hurt all of these times, you know, is like, just run, you know, just
Mhm.
run away now. But obviously, like, I know that this is not the case here. And yet there's still that voice. So I was going through this whole process of freedom, and the prayers like help me to remember that freedom is not being able to do whatever I want, but actually the freedom that I get to experience by way of doing what is wanted for me, and just like releasing the chains that we put on ourselves of whatever, of the grief, of the shame, of the guilt, of the addictions, because we're, you know, trying our best to do things on our own, versus if we just offer our life up to being a child of God and doing the will. And people can say it however they want. You know, if people are more comfortable with the term alignment, that's fine, but it's all the same. You know, what is written for me, and can I do that instead of distracting myself with what I've been told I need to do, and so have adopted as what I think I need to do.
Distractions are easy. I get it.
Mhm.
Distractions are really easy and they can be fun and they can be exciting. And a lot of it can be based off of adrenaline and dopamine and things that crash hard.
Hmm.
And there's this dance that I play with where it's like, okay, so you can have it all or you can have everything. To me,
Mm.
having it all doesn't mean that I have everything. Because in one moment, I may have the devotion and presence of my wife. And then the next moment, she may be angry. So having everything is like, well, I want to have my wife and I want to have all the hot sex all the time and I don't want to have any responsibilities and I want everything. To me, which feels like a child who doesn't have the ability to be patient and is like not learning and knowing that things come to us when we put that energy in, when we invest, like we were talking about.
Mm.
But I can have everything by not have, I can have it all. I can have it all by not having everything, which
Mhm.
comes back down to like that narrowing, the winnowing away of options. And to me, I feel like I have all that I need and all that I have ever wanted and more through my devotion to my wife. Because I remember what it was like, and I talk to so many men where they're wondering, like, is she the one for me? And I'm like, it's not about that, because when I go out, when I walk in the world, I'm not looking anymore.
Mm.
And there's such freedom in that. I've been in relationships in the past where I had to address those parts of myself, where I had the back door open, where I'm like, whoa, there's this really cool girl who I've been talking to and I can feel flirtatious energy and things are kind of hard with my girlfriend right now. So I know where I can probably run across her. So I'll go and find her path and like
Yeah.
just get a little boost, which again is extracting and I'm taking something from someone instead of like being honest and saying, I'm having a really hard time with you right now. I need some space and I really want to go get something from someone because I need to fill something up and I'm going to do that for myself rather than go and take from someone. And so as I closed up my leaks and devoted myself to my wife, going out in the world feels so simple because that part of myself that was always looking is exhausting. And I remind men, when you do make that choice, if you want to, I don't think it's for every person. I don't think devotion and choosing union and like committed relationship is for every person. It requires a lot. Because if you want, at least in my eyes, if you want a happy, thriving relationship, it, like, again, it takes a lot, right? It takes a lot to keep it clean, to keep the mirror clear, to see each other for who we really are rather than, oh, well, I have this expectation on you and this, and you're not giving me that. And it's just better to be mad at each other rather than leaning in and opening ourselves up to each other over and over and over. And so in choosing love and choosing devotion, again, my world is opened. And I've watched that with other clients where they go all in and the path reveals itself. It's so much clearer rather than like, do I really want this? And that questioning to me is complicating it. And I again, I've seen it with so many individuals that at this point, I'm like, if someone is not telling me and like they're ranting and raving that like they want this person, I'm like, why are you with them? Like, actually honor that other individual, honor yourself to say, I'm not really that into it. So that way they can make a choice and be like, well, I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with not being chosen all the way. Because if you're not doing that, well, what if that person's okay with it? Then maybe you two will be happy like that. But if someone, because I've I've had enough times where a woman has never said she doesn't want to be chosen all the way. She wants that. She's like, please choose me all the way. And if you don't, let me go. So it's a beautiful gift, but it also requires a lot.
Yeah. As you're speaking into the distinction between wanting everything and wanting it all, the man who wants everything is constantly scanning for other options. He's constantly creating a contingency plan. If this doesn't work out, then this other thing might,
Mhm.
and I can escape the trials that are required of me for this to work. And one word that you used was, I think you said leaking energy, right? This
Mhm.
constant scanning of trying to diversify options so that if this one thing doesn't work out, I'll have a floor to fall onto. Let me see what the best question is here to ask.
Mhm.
That fragmented energy, right? Of she's hot, this and that. It's leaky sexual energy. And we know that our attention is energy. And when we give it away, we have less to devote to our creative projects, to our purpose, to the woman that we've said that we're committed to. So, how did you go about plugging those energy leaks and getting your sexual energy in control?
That has been probably one of the biggest works for me in becoming a man. I was addicted, not addicted, but I was exposed to porn when I was 6. And pretty soon after that, I was seeking it out all the time. I had other individuals around me who knew how to access it, knew how to have it, and that was back in the day when there was floppy disks. So I had some older, like, Hanai, which in Hawaii is like adopted. I had like some older Hanai cousins who were like, "Hey, here's this floppy disk," and that, like, passing stuff around. And that went all the way up until that time with that near death experience I had 16 years ago. When that happened, I was like, I'm done. And that was a very hard, challenging process for about 2.5 years to go from, whoa, this is an addiction. I have a porn addiction, to really break it. And just for the men who are out there, how long has that been? So 36, it's been about 14 years. The energy of that still comes up as my wife gave birth and is laying in our bed with our child. There were thoughts like those old patterns were like, oh, hey, I'm still here. And it's like, well, hi, I know you. I know what that means. I got to know what those leaks were. Those leaks, the reason why I had those leaks is because my inner feminine, my little child, my little boy needed love and attention. But what I did is I turned to porn. I turned to cannabis. I turned to sex for filling those holes up. And thankfully, I'm grateful for a mentor because when I was 20, he introduced me to Taoist sexual cultivation practices. I got introduced into the world of Montauk Chia, did some training with him. And that was just this blossoming into, oh my God, wow, I can bring a level of sacredness and intentionality to my own sexual energy, to how I show up. And the questions, like, I've never talked with a client or a man where I'm like, do you want to be a better lover? Do you want to learn how to last longer? Do you want to like actually show up and meet and please your woman? Every dude has been like, yeah, jumping up and down saying, please show me how. So that was like the door in. But in doing that, I had to meet all of the leaks. Like you said, looking around, and because of porn, like objectifying women, I had to address those parts of myself that were doing that. I had to meet the anger and the rage and the disgust of what I did, of how I would do that. And the more that I did that, the more that I did this work, the more that I practiced, and it's still a part of my life 16 years later. Like the practices that I have had from that have blossomed. The gifts that have come from that, like, it's just incredible what has happened to realize what is available to us that I didn't know because of porn, because of Hollywood, because of all these things that show me what love is, that shows me what intimacy is, and recognizing like, whoa, I had everything backwards. And I have enough experience both from past relationships as well as with my wife. I'm like, whenever I talk to guys, I'm like, if you actually want to like become the best that she's ever had, like it's totally possible. It's not a hierarchical thing, but it's just like being met and like the ability to be present with her. And so to me, the leaks were presence. The leaks was clearing up porn. The leaks was tending to myself. The leaks were, again, those back doors. A lot of it had to do with just interrelational dynamics, my anger, my rage, relational dynamics with my family. And in addressing my sexual energy, I feel like that has transformed my whole life.
Yeah. The wandering eye. There are people out there that would say, that's just a natural part of being a man. That even when you're married, you are going to desire other women, right? I've gone through this process too of plugging some energy leaks. It's like I reject that belief. But what would you say to someone that has that view of, that's just the way it is. I never act on it. So what does it matter? What would you say to that man?
I kind of got into a social media debate with this other influencer who was talking about that. And the distinction that I have with this is to not suppress what we have inside of us, which is our ability to notice. Because there's a big distinction between attraction, arousal, and desire. To me, attraction is natural. It's like a magnet. If I'm pulled towards this corner of the street, it's not going to be like, part of me is I'm like, I have curiosity to see why I'm pulled over. It's like if I see a flower, wow, I can notice the flower. But the things is if then the thoughts are being followed through on of like fantasizing and being like, oh my God, what would it be like to be with her? I want to tap that ass. Like that's when we start entering into extraction.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who has this belief, I don't have any qualms because my wife and I, we've talked about this. We love beauty. We appreciate beauty. Everyone has their own preferences of what beauty is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about denying what is. To me, that would be like saying, because I've got this beautiful red hibiscus bush outside of my office. That would just be like, no, it doesn't exist. I'm not going to ever look at it. It's just not there. The difference would be, well, okay, there's that bush there, but my wife is there, and I'm just going to sit here all day long and just start fantasizing and fantasizing. And then the next thing I know, I'm making love with my wife and I'm fantasizing about that flower bush.
Mm-hmm.
So I think attraction is natural. So I am a firm believer that will always be there. I'm not here to deny it. If I go out and I have an interaction whether it's I'm at the post office, I'm at the farmer's market, whatever it is, I am able to acknowledge that there is a human that exists in front of me and that they are how they appear. And I may have my own preferences or judgments or whatever. If there was something about the interaction, what I have rewired myself to do is just turn that towards my gratitude with my wife and just be like, wow, I'm so grateful for that interaction. And I'm bringing this energy of what happened because I'm not trying to engage in flirtation. I'm not trying to engage in, like, again, getting things. Like, I've had to get really clear with like my own energy and like where I'm operating from. And we were talking about that earlier, again, with the alignment or the attunement. Like, am I operating from here? Am I operating from here? Am I operating from my groin? Like, where am I? What's going on for me? So when I go out, I'm in my heart. And like I said, I'm not going out because I'm not like looking for anything. So if I have an interaction where I have a good time with someone, I'm not then all of a sudden being like I need to get her, not like, just those things aren't there for me anymore. And I think it just is a maturation process for what someone wants. If someone wants to actually enter into a relationship and have both sides feel like they're loved and respected and cherished, then everyone has to talk and get clear. There are people who say that polyamory is the way. I don't think it's the way. I think it's a way. Is it what I want? No. Are those people wrong? No. So I think so much of it has to come down to what is true for each individual. Because if I'm in a relationship where I want to be committed to my wife and go 1 inch wide and a mile deep, but the woman who I'm with wants something different, then I have to actually say, do I want to be with that or not? And so I don't want to make someone wrong for having those things, but I do want people to understand the impact that it has. Because just imagine if you're in the other side of the shoes where you're with your wife and she's having interactions and looking at dudes and then coming back and she's making love and then all of a sudden says this other dude's name. And then you're like, oh God, what, like, that's gonna not feel good. So if you're doing that to her, to just like follow through with it and see what the impact's gonna do. So I think that it's just really critical that, again, we understand what we're doing and what we're creating, which comes back to our own sexual energy and like how we show up. And what I say is the way you make love is the way you live life, and the way you live life is the way you make love. And that has been one of the biggest pieces for me to learn how I actually show up and live and show up in the world.
Yeah, this process with sexual energy and validation is such a block for so many of the men that I work with, that we work with. And it really is this path of subtlety. You know, we've said the path and arrows a few times on this podcast. And it's like, initially, it might be, "Oh, I used to cheat on my partner, now I'm not cheating on her." You know, like, that's awesome, like, good
Amazing.
job, you
First
know?
step.
Totally. And, like, for some people, that really is, and that's great, and, like, if you're addicted to porn, like, there's gonna be this first step of sealing in your energy leaks where you're not watching porn anymore, and then as you walk this path, these subtle spaces that both of you are talking about where you're not, like, looking at other women and fantasizing about them, that for probably 90% of the population would say, "Oh, that's just our biology." You know, that's just that's how we evolved. It's spreading our seed. But I mean, I agree that we don't have to buy into that. And the whole game we're playing is consciousness. You know, just because
Mhm.
my physiology works a certain way doesn't mean my consciousness has to. And so this becomes more and more subtle, and you can notice someone who's beautiful, but you don't have to make eye contact with them 16 times
Yep.
because that indicates or would appear as if you're available for eye contact and connection when actually you're not. And so learning over time, like the subtlety and having compassion for yourself wherever you are in the phases of the journey, but knowing, to your point, of if committed, devotional, monogamous, worship worthy partnership is what you want,
Mhm.
then all of your energy is going there. And, you know, that type of partnership, all relationships in some capacity, but monogamous partnership truly is meant to be, this is like Isaac is the embodiment of God for me, and I am the embodiment of Goddess for him. And when you look to, you know, any type of spiritual or religious practice, there's one. You know, there's one that we go to because that's where all the energy goes. And if we are working this path of, okay, there's this analogy of like, which wolf are you feeding? Whichever wolf you feed grows. If I'm feeding both of them, neither really gets as strong. You know, if I'm letting all of my energy leak out to this like pack of dogs in the gym, then the wolf at home isn't going to be like as nourished because our energy is the energy that we have. And I just wanted to circle back to what you were sharing about some of the, like your experience with porn addiction and cannabis use. And there seems to be just this acceptance in culture of like, oh, men watch porn. I was sharing some of my experience when I was younger with Isaac yesterday of I also went through this process with like various addictions, and part of my journey was porn and cannabis. And he was like, I didn't even know that about you. Like, you never share that. I'm like, well, it feels harder to
Mhm.
share as a woman. Like, it's just accepted that men watch porn. And when I
Totally.
was younger in relationships, I remember telling some of my guy friends, oh, my partner doesn't watch porn. And they were like, that's a lie. All men watch porn. And so that was what I was programmed with. All men watch porn. And so then I'm finding with men that I work with that, you know, they're coming to this place of everyone did this, but it's not feeling good to me. You
Mhm.
know, is this an addiction? But I don't want to call it an addiction. I could not smoke cannabis if I wanted to. I'm not really addicted. But then you look at their toolbox and there's nothing in it except for porn and cannabis. So if those are the only tools in your toolbox, to some extent, you are kind of a slave to them, whether you want to call it an addiction or not.
Like,
And I use this imagery of a toolbox, you know, hey, those are the only tools you have. Of course, you're going to use them. It's all good. We just need more. We need way more tools in your toolbox because you shared with your journey and these Taoist practices that you started working with, they're still part of your practice. And I'm sure you found like, oh, I actually like using this hammer better than that shitty 25-year-old screwdriver that doesn't work anymore, you
yep.
know? And so when we teach the tools that make us feel good, we naturally will start to work with them over time. So I think that's just a really important message for anyone that's listening. Like, whether you identify with addiction or not, if you are only having a certain coping strategy or two and you don't feel better afterwards, then it's somewhere on the spectrum of, you know, your energy going somewhere you don't want to and you being a slave to something you don't want to be, or addiction, whatever you want to call it. And so on that note, I know you mentioned these dialysexual practices. Like, what are the best tools in your toolbox for when you are having these experiences of not feeling good where you would have previously reached for validation or porn or cannabis before, that now you have other things that maybe actually feel good, make you feel better afterwards even?
I'll dive into that. I just want to, because we're talking about all of this, you said something that is very related in this realm. You said we're working with consciousness. And
Mm.
in the realm of these Taoist cultivation practices, in the realm of Tantra, in the realm of a lot of these other realms, we have our physiology, which most men don't realize that we can have an orgasm without ejaculation. And our physiology is we want to go out, we want to spread the seed. That's the physiology. But there's also other pathways where that energy can move in our body and it can enliven us and it can open our heart, it can expand our mind, like it can give us more energy. There's so much that's available. And so that's a lot of what has happened is I saw what porn did to me. I saw what excessive ejaculation did to me. I saw that even initially cannabis I felt like was such a different energetic than alcohol. So I could smoke and then wake up the next day and be like, whoa, I don't feel bad. But then I eventually started to realize like, wow, I'll smoke and I just feel so exhausted and so drained. And I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need to get so blasted and so high from especially the stuff in this day and age that's just so bred to be so strong. I'm like, I'm not trying to escape. A lot of those practices were escaping. So
Mhm.
now my practices are to stay. We're talking about a worship, a well worshiped, beautiful, wonderful, devotional relationship and union. It's about staying when things get hard, when things get tough. It's staying and not disconnecting, not running away, not hiding, not avoiding. And so a lot of my practices keep me here. So that's being in my body, that's going out and tending to the land, going and being with the plants, breathing. The breath is one of the biggest ones. In
Mm.
Hawaii, spirit is the same as breath, which is ha. So just that connectionship, right? Like the connectionship, but the connection between breath and spirit. So breathing is one of the biggest things that I do. I train my body because I want to be strong. I want to be able to, like, if I need to hold my daughter for 6 hours because my wife is tired and like after she breastfeeds, I need to be able to hold her and walk her around and do all of these things with her. So yeah, nature, moving my body, training my body, pushing my edges. So that way I know what it's like when I reach challenge and I know I can keep going. a lot of breath work, a lot of the different tantric and Taoist practices of like being in connection with my body. Because since we're talking about sexual energy and all that, and when I talk to my clients, I'm like, if you want to be a better lover, you've got to actually train those parts of yourself and train those parts of your body. If you don't train to build your stamina, if you don't train to have all of these things, yes, we can talk about its presence and all that stuff. But when you go into the moment to make love and you're afraid and you're worried out and you're freaked out, that you're not able to be present. So we have to have both, like technique. And I know that there's a lot of different women who say it has nothing to do with technique, but I'm a geek of words and I love looking at the etymology of words. Technique means the art or the ability to do an art or a craft or make something, how you do it. So technique is just art. So if we want lovemaking to be like art, if we want it to be beautiful and intricate and have all of these layers to it, you have to practice. And if we as men only have the practice of making love with our partners, which is the most stimulating and exciting and arousing and pleasurable thing that there is, that's why most guys are challenged, because they're not practicing when it's not so intense. So they can then go and meet the challenges and have those skills. So a lot of my practice is taking care of myself, tending to my own pleasure, learning and like knowing what is my own body. So then I can come and be with my wife. And obviously I had many years before I got together with her with that, but that's what has been so much of the foundation, is to know that. And so all of those things, I said a lot, but they're very simple, because I can go and I can put my feet on the ground and I can look up at the sun and I can breathe. I can feel the wind on my face. I can go and work out in my gym, or I can go to the beach, or I can go and lift up a rock or a log, or go and swim underwater and hold my breath as long as I can. I can breathe wherever I am. I can do that while I'm here. I can do it while I'm working. I can do it while I'm driving. I can breathe when I'm eating. These things are very simple, but the translation that it has in effectiveness and technique or skill in life has been monumental.
Yeah. Guys are suckers for tools and skills, right? And they're like, oh, you're going to teach me some tools and some skills? Like, great. I'm in. And when you start working with a guy and you're having him create his own tools, what I've found is, the first tool that maybe one of the first few tools that he'll come up with is, I'm going to call a loved one, or I'm going to go to the gym. There's these things that require certain conditions for those to be available. It's like, if I already commuted 15 minutes to the gym today and came home and now I'm dysregulated, I'm probably not going to go back to the gym again. But the breath is always there. It's always accessible, and it's so effective once we learn how to work with it.
Yeah. I have this question that's just kind of been like in the back of my mind the whole time we've been talking. So
Yeah.
I'm going to shift a little bit, but we talked about this initiation of fatherhood. And so I think this is why this came up, but you can answer it through any timeline. And the question is basically, how would you have described masculinity? We use this term in the before times. So it can be before fatherhood, but it can also be like before. And how would you describe it now? And same thing for femininity. How would you have defined or described the feminine in the before times versus now?
Masculinity before, I would have described as, you got to show up and you got to do the work. You got to learn what it's like to take care of something other than yourself. You need to learn how to be the protector and the provider. Choosing your heart. I would really say that's what I would describe it as. Femininity, I would describe as the beauty, the chaos, the mystery of life, and yeah, just the flow, the ability to flow, the ability to feel, the ability to be all of it. Now, I would describe masculinity as the protector of life. And now I would describe femininity as the giver, the birther, the one who fills in the beauty of life. And so much of that is influenced through birth, because we talk about tools. I couldn't do anything. I had to meet the utter grief of helplessness in birth, because I was not pregnant and I was not doing anything. And I tried to. There was times where I'm like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. I got to like choose my heart. I got to do all these things. She didn't want that. She just wanted my presence. My presence was helping her feel safe. My presence was protecting her. My presence was like, you're going to get through this. Whatever that way looks like, I'll be right here by your side. And watching what the feminine goes through in birth, I thought I knew the feminine before. I to a certain extent, I knew the feminine before. But now there's just such a deeper devotion and love and appreciation for what the feminine does. Because without the feminine, none of us would be here. Without the mother, man or woman, we would not be here. And so that's why I say, like, we're the protector. So much of protection I thought had to do with these things that we do. But now I'm like, protection has to do with providing the space for the feminine to be who she is and what she is, which again is that beauty, like that animation, bringing life to life. Because if life was not there, it would be very dim and not like animated and not alive. And there, it's hard to even put into words. I still feel like I'm going through this initiation process. So that's the best that I've got right now.
It's so beautiful because when you're talking about this, obviously it's the imagery of, the childbirth experience you just went through, but the definition of the feminine being, the giver of life and the masculine being the protector of life, it applies across the board. Like, okay, Mother Earth, giver of life. Okay, we're the stewards. Like God in the creation allegory story, it was said like created man for the keeper of all he had created. And so that is in whatever lineages and religions you believe, like that is part of our being. Like the humans are the masculine to hold the Mother Earth. And similarly, in a whatever the dynamic is, but a masculine pole and a feminine pole partnership, it's like when the feminine is having her chaotic experiences, so much of the dissonance comes even within, men within their own connection to their feminine in trying to get rid of the emotional states instead of with your words like, oh, this is life itself. This emotional process is life itself. What a gift to be able to hold this emotion, whether it is in the feminine outside of me or in the feminine within me. And I get to hold this as sacred because this is how we know that we are alive. So I really, really love that as the definition for both. So beautiful.
We always end this podcast with the same two questions. And the first question is that for the interest of this podcast, not just living as a conversation, but actually serving as a tool to contribute to the evolution of men, all of our guests always leave a piece of homework. So what is one piece of homework that you would assign to the listeners?
Wherever you live, I don't care where it is, whether you say you live in a concrete jungle or you live on a tropical island like I do in Maui, go and find somewhere where you can feel your connection to the earth and sit with yourself with nothing to do, but learn how to feel, learn how to tune into the rhythms of nature. Because when we do that, a lot unfolds. I'm not going to say what it will do, but it does a lot. So do that. And if you do, please reach out to me. I love to hear feedback of what happens when a man does this. I'm very open. So message me. My inbox is I read my messages on Instagram. So please reach out if you do that.
Wonderful. And the last question is to serve part of the mission of this podcast, which is to make it abundantly clear that there are so many men that are rising and leading and taking hard looks at themselves in the mirror. So, who's another man that you would recommend our audience look to or learn from?
Michael Gay. He's a individual who has helped me develop a lot and become, he's really a masterful individual in many different realms. And I love him as a dear brother as well.
And to close us out, Devon, if there's anything else on your heart or mind that you want to leave the audience with, or if you simply just want to share where people can find you.
One, just want to thank you all for providing a space for men to learn and women to learn about how men can be worshipped as well. Because I think it's absolutely critical for us to rise together, men and women. The feminine absolutely needs to be lifted up and brought up within a lot of the collective and individuals of how they see the feminine women. And if we push men down, then we're doing the same thing that we've done. So may we rise together. So thank you all for
Love
doing
it.
this.
Go ahead.
And in times of uncertainty, in times of challenge, the thing that is going to guide us forward is not knowing, but is going to be in prayer, is going to be in connection to Great Spirit. So may we all remember that when things seem nuts, when things seem crazy, when the world seems like it's falling apart, maybe it needs to, so we can figure out what pieces we pick back up and what we create as far as culture and what we participate in as we move forward. Where people can find me, I've got my Instagram there, Devon Frederickson. My website is currently serving as a landing page for my program, Becoming the King, which is my next group program that I've got. That is my flagship relationship program for men who want to either become that embodiment of the king archetype in a relationship or step into that more in the relationship that you're in. So you can find me there. And I'm here to support both men, women, and couples, and just for us to really return to what it means to be human, for us to do the healing work, which really means to just simply become the fullest part of ourselves that we've been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Devin.
having me. I'm so grateful for this conversation and feel so nourished.